All right, welcome to Dominate Your Day. I'm Dana Williams, and I have the pleasure of connecting today with Laura and Barry Ash. Now, I'm going to tell you guys something fun about them first. Um, Look at them and see if you see some superheroes in them. If you're on our visuals right now, there we go. They actually look like Superman and Wonder Woman. Yeah, and they actually get to one of the things they do as a couple and as a working couple is go out and meet with hospitals dressed up as superheroes. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I,
Thank you so much for having us. It's really wonderful to be here with you.
it's so fun to kind of get to know my clients and people on the show in the green room, and you guys are a treasure. I am excited about you sharing your journey as we on Dominate Your Day really focus on difference makers and people who are making an impact. And the two of you have made your journey incredible and now giving back in big ways, not only Superman and Wonder Woman, but also in the workplace. So tell us your story, how you guys met, and then how you started working together and what you do now.
Well, I'll say we met as a partnership. I was working in a local leisure centre, and Loz came in there to have a workout, and I thought, she looks a bit all right. So I went over and chatted to her, and we started doing some assessments and some fitness tests with her, and we just hit it off like we've always known each other. And over the next couple of weeks of us dating, I took her out for a meal, and we started talking about where we used to go to school, what play school we went, preschool went to, and we worked out that we went back and we used to go to this YMCA when we were 3 and 4. And I said I used to play the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man with this girl. She was Firestar, and this other lad who was Spider-Man, and I used to play Iceman. And Laura's face just dropped, and she was like, "That was me. I used to go to
Is
the
that
YMCA."
crazy?
Yeah, and she used to be Firestar, and she used to play with these two boys, which was me. And that's when we first met, when we was like 3 and 4 years of age.
Crazy. I don't think I've ever had a couple on the show before that have known each other since they were 3 and 4. So how many years was spanned from the time you all met and played together at the YMCA at 3 and 4 until when you started dating? Was that like 20 something years or?
Yeah, because we met. I was 21 and you were 22.
Yeah.
Oh,
Quite a few years.
wow.
So we'd had, time to kind of grow as human beings and experience our own, upbringing. And yeah, that's kind of when
But
we met.
it was like fate brought us back together again.
Yeah, definitely.
So you were in the healthcare business, is that right?
I used to
Is
work
that
in the leisure industries.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so I was a fitness instructor, personal trainer, one of the managers of the local leisure centres. That's where I started, and Loz come in and started doing some exercise.
Ah, okay. And then so now tell the audience what you guys do now and how you've come together to form a partnership and what you're doing.
So I think it's really important to kind of just take it back a little bit and kind of explain how we kind of, started the business, which has been over a decade now, Dana. I mean, how I
Wow.
know time flies, right? So my background is I'm a former police officer and counterterrorism intelligence officer. And I signed up for the police and I wanted to be a firearms officer, Dana. That is what I wanted to do. I wanted the gun, I wanted to look cool. That's just in the UK, there's a special unit for that, right?
Yeah.
But I started to become unwell during my time in the police. I was finding that I was very sad. I was having panic attacks, but then I was really happy and elated. But then I'd have really bad periods again of not wanting to be here. And I had lots of doctor's appointments and meetings. And I got diagnosed with bipolar and OCD. And
Mm.
it got to the point after 10 years of service that I just couldn't do my job anymore. It wasn't safe for me and it wasn't safe for my team. And that was the most important thing. And so in September 2012, I went to the force medical doctor and he said, right, this is it. This is the time. You either medically retire yourself or we do it for you.
Mm.
And I sat and I thought about it. I looked at Barry and I said, I'm going to do it. I will medically retire myself. We signed the paperwork and he was like, right, that's it. You can go home. And I was like, hang on a
Mm,
second, but all of my case files, all of my co-workers, no, that's it. You go home. So from September 2012 all the way round to September 2013, I was waiting to be medically retired at home. And I was like, what am I going to do? I'm 33 years old. I have a mental health diagnosis and I'm being medically retired from a police force. I couldn't really see anybody giving me a job. So we decided to take life into our own hands. And that's when we decided to create Rock Solid Health, because we knew how, looking after myself with my nutrition, my exercise, my mindset, what that dad did for me. And we wanted to create that gift for other people in the world. So on the
mm.
1st of June 2013, I was medically retired. And on the 2nd of June, the very next day, we opened up Rock Solid with a full bill of clients. Um,
Wow.
and we've been going strong ever since. And we were doing more body transformations, you see like 1 week and 12 weeks apart. And, we were doing that kind of stuff. But as we
Mm,
soon found out something was missing. And this kind of led us on a journey. And then fast forward to 2017, I had the biggest breakdown that I'd suffered since leaving the police. And what I didn't
mm,
know was it was burnout. And
mm.
my burnout was so severe that I was catatonic and we almost lost the business. At
Wow.
that point of rediscovery, that's when we decided to pivot the business and focus on lifestyle, focus on stress management, focus on burnout. And really, from that point forward, we've really been focusing more on wellness, energy management, and that kind of stuff. Um,
Mm,
but your story has always been seated within fitness, hasn't it?
100%.
mm,
It's always been about the physical body. That's how I started off in this industry. It was all about making this vessel that we live in as robust as it possibly can. But I think a lot of people start with the physical and then they move on
mm,
to the mental, but they miss a big chunk that me and Loz are specialised in now is the emotional. And we need to
mm,
get hold of our emotional health. And I think, well, I know there's not a mental health pandemic out there. It's an emotional health pandemic. People
mhm.
need to understand how their emotions work, what they're for, and how to manage them. And when we do that, game changer.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, there's several things I wanna just take a minute and have our audience
Mm,
reflect back because I think it's a really good example of what you both are sharing, Laura and Barry. But um, when we look back and write the pivots in our life, we usually see a big thing getting ready to happen.
mm,
And we see how we've overcome the pivot. And I think your first pivot was stepping down, Laura, from the police department and taking this mental health break. And what did you call it? A medical retirement.
yeah, medical retirement. Yeah.
And then, Barry, what were some of your pivot points? Did you have any personal pivot points along the way? At probably meeting Clara was one.
yeah,
You
I
changed
think
your,
about
you know.
my big pivot points. I think meeting Laura was one of them. My dad dying when I was really young was another one. My mum passing. They've been massive pivot points in my life. But
Mhm.
also, I think not just relying on the physical body, but looking at the mental health and looking at the emotional health as well.
I think I think you're kind of underplaying yourself a bit there, Baz, because even sorry, every good wife has to step in, right? Because
Go for it.
like obviously your dad and your mum
Mm,
have died and they've both been really significant, but also while I was a police officer, Barry was a prison officer, so over in America that would be a corrections officer, so you were working the prison
mhm,
service. And there was coming to a point where while Rock Solid was running from the June to the September, Barry was working two jobs basically. He was doing 12-hour shifts and coming home. And you really had to make that decision about leaving the prison service, and that's a really big thing to do, Danny, because we were on really good wages, both of us, right?
Mhm.
And we were like, well, do I just have this as a side project for me and Barry still work in the prison and have that security? And that was a really big decision and a pivot point for you to actually take control of your life and put yourself out there on a limb.
Yeah, I just thought it was exciting.
Yeah.
Let's see where this journey goes.
And I think there's so many people. I know 'em, they're out there watching us right now,
Mhm.
and they're having a moment where they're just staying doing the same thing. They're not living their life by design like you guys are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're getting stuck and they don't know how to take the pivot and turn it for good like you guys have done.
Mm,
What would be your advice to them as you get in these moments, like you said, Laura, as you were waiting for your medical retirement,
yeah.
or even you, Barry, as you were waiting, after just going through the grief and the emotional things you were going through? How did y'all get through those times?
For me, there's the word I use, which is trust, and you have to
Mm,
trust that your journey's already laid out for you, and just trust what's going on. Follow your heart, and if you follow the heart, trust the process, you're always going to end up right. You're going to be doing the right thing, and you got to just you got to look at the pros and cons, but trust this thing
mhm.
here, and you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
I love that. How about you,
I
Laura?
think, we all have this thing whispering in our ear, right? And it's whispered into our hearts, but we
Mm,
often neglect it because maybe we don't feel brave enough or, are worried of financial implications or whatever. And I think you have to start living your life's purpose. And I know that sounds really kind of cliche, but I can't remember who said it, but somebody said the richest places on earth are the graveyards of all the
mm,
broken dreams, of all the songs that weren't made, the paintings, all the things not created. And I just think life's too short to be living a life that you don't want to be in. Life's too
mm,
short to be miserable. Life's too short to be unfulfilled. If you're working 9 to 5 and you don't like it, do something about it because every
mm.
minute that ticks by is a moment that's robbed of this world where you could be giving your passion or your creation, and you're almost robbing us all of you not embodying that and stepping into it.
But how did you take that action? Because especially when you had that burnout moment,
Yeah.
you knew something wasn't right. Was that something, Barry, you were noticing too, and you kind of helped her get through? How did y'all help each other get through that?
One step at a time, and it's just taking them small steps, and even just getting up and Loz putting her clothes on, getting out
Mm,
of her pajamas into her normal set of clothes, that was a big step. So we took it day by day, and it's looking at the small day by day tasks and then slowly building on them until we come back to
Yeah.
a normal functioning human being, should we say.
Yeah, definitely. I think, Barry's right there. It is about the small steps. And I'm just thinking back. I mean, it happened at midnight on the 25th of June. And literally, I just snapped. And all of a
wow.
sudden, I just couldn't. I was just like, I just can't take anymore. I snapped and I ended up crying hysterically for 3 hours. I just couldn't stop.
Mm,
But even in the morning when Barry called the mental health crisis team, I still denied there was anything wrong. I was like, I'm fine. I just need a few days off. And I think the first stage when you experience something like that is you've got to be brave enough to accept and acknowledge what's going on.
mhm.
Because until you've done that, you can't go any further.
Mhm.
It's like, yeah,
And I think too, Laura, I think that's why I appreciate both of you sharing your story, because there's people out there and they're thinking, oh, nothing's wrong with me, or nothing's wrong with me. But there's an accountability partner or a husband
Mhm.
or a spouse saying, yes, but we're going to get you some help, and being able to get that help. So you moved into that next phase of getting the help, getting step by step, as Barry says. Who knew this would be become your calling of what you're helping people with now?
And
Right?
yeah,
the
it's
same.
like the superhero's journey. You have to go through the ordeal. You have to be broken down. You have to go through the struggles in life. And sometimes it's the struggles that you go through which brings out your passion and brings out
Mm.
your destiny of where you want to do and how you want to give back to this world.
And
For those listening that don't know, I mean, there's a lot of different writings on the superhero's journey. How would you explain that to them?
I would say you get a calling, You start this journey. It might be like you meet someone and that someone gets taken away, and then you have to fight the baddie and find where your partner's been taken to, and then bring them back. And then through that journey, you become this superhero because you start picking up these superpowers and these super skills and more tools in your tool belt to deal with it again. And then you come back and everything's right and you've succeeded and you're back to the top of the circle. And then the journey starts again.
Yeah.
And then the journey starts again. And you're always going through this hero journey in life.
And I think that's a good point, because you know what? We're never going to be perfect, right? And we're either going through a valley or we're helping somebody going through a valley.
Yeah.
Or we're going through, it's like, yeah, and so to look at life as circular like that, I think is really powerful. So how do you help your clients right now with burnout and taking what you've learned as a couple and then now taking that into the workplace? What do you all do? Tell us about that.
It's a really great question, because everything that we've created in terms of our programs and how we help people is exactly what we do. We wouldn't get any of our clients to do anything that we haven't done. And the first place we always get our clients to start is we get them to look at something called the burnout self-assessment. And we've created this burnout self-assessment that looks at the 3 dimensions of burnout: mental, physical, and emotional. Okay. Because they all have different symptoms for each of them and how they present, and everybody's different. And so that's the first thing: accept and acknowledge. Do the burnout self-assessment. The next stage is we've then got that screenshot of where they are experiencing burnout the most. So what we can do is that we can then do what we call C, which is calm and control. And that's where we're calming and controlling the autonomic nervous system. Because when someone comes to you who's extremely burnt out, their autonomic nervous system is in fight or flight. It's red line in Dana, right? And you cannot do any kind of coaching when you're in that state. Right? You can barely just put your clothes on and string a sentence together. And so that's what we would do. We would work on that autonomic nervous system. And then the final one would be E. It's the ACE method, ACE. The final one is E, and that's explore. Once everything's calmed down a little bit, we can start to think a little bit straighter, right? Then we can start to explore, why did this happen? What's the identity or the thought process that's gone behind, which has made you or caused you to burn out? Because it's usually high achievers. I have to prove something. I'm a perfectionist. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. But we can't get to that while your body is screaming because it's in that fight or flight.
So when you've done that with clients, because you've tested it for yourself, have you had to repeat that for yourself later? Have you found yourself having to use this same, acronym ACE for yourself?
Always.
As you say, circle of life. Everything is circular in this life we live. And so it's always good to go back and reevaluate what's going on. How am I feeling? Keep evaluating, keep changing, keep assessing.
And, even I did a mini ACE thing last weekend. So Barry and I competed in a CrossFit competition. Okay.
Of course you did.
Of course we did. And it was a full event, 4 workouts, completely redlining it, Dana, like literally, exhausted. And the next day, not next day, the day after, I tried to do something called a 1 rep max. That's like lifting as much as you could. But I kept feeling sick after my workouts and tired. And I was like, what's going on? And I thought, hang on a second, accept and acknowledge I feel like this. It's calm and control. Hang on a second. My autonomic nervous system is still in fight or flight. I'm not digesting my food. I'm still very tired. Okay, so then I needed to make sure I lessened my workouts, did some more breath work, and then I could do the E to explore, which I found out, okay, that's what's gone on. So again, even in just everyday life, you can apply that to, really be able to just get your balance back, shall we say, for want of a better word.
Do you have a story or an example of somebody you've worked with and how you've helped them through that? And I can only imagine what that felt like, because you learned how to help yourself, and now you're helping all these people.
I mean, there's so many, because we've helped so many people, and all of their results are fantastic. One that always sticks out to us is a lady came to us last December. Okay, she did the burnout self-assessment and she scored 23% out of 100. So she was
Mm,
proper in the red line. She was isolating herself. Her business wasn't doing very well. She had rosacea. Her resting heart rate was 99 beats a minute, just resting, right? She was unable to think, unable to think. She was having racing thoughts at night. And she went to the doctors and they did all the blood tests on her, could find nothing wrong, right? But she was having digestive issues, all this skin stuff. But what they wanted to do, they wanted to put her on some beta blockers for her heart rate. But she said, no, I refuse. And she came to us and we looked at the burnout self-assessment. We looked at where she was at. And we then worked with her to create a bespoke plan of how we could start to calm her autonomic nervous system. So it's things like journaling, breath work, gratitude, morning routines, light exposure, these sorts of things to really just kind of help her calm down, help her say no, get rid of the alcohol, things like this, right?
mm.
3 months later, she scored 98%,
Wow.
right? And her business is thriving. She's
Mhm.
socializing. She bagged herself a Munro. So a Munro basically is a mountain in Scotland
Over a certain height,
over a certain height. I think it's
Wow.
3,000 meters.
3,000 meters, right? She climbed that twice.
Wow.
Her hair is growing back. Her skin is cleared up. Her heart rate came down to 69 beats a minute, right? She's laughing. She's enjoying life. And
Mm.
even now, she's still thriving. She's just doing an orienteering course, you know? And so this is what can happen if you start to actually apply methods, to your life, and listen what's going on. And that's just one of many stories.
And I think the message here is, and this is what I like to talk about a lot, and especially with our guests, is there's an internal war and there's an external war. And where do you want the peace? And how do you get the peace inside yourself,
Mm,
as opposed to trying to people please and all the things that come from that external approval, right? And so everything you mentioned there was about working on the internal piece and making the breath work, the journaling, but it's not a one and done, right? It's a constant.
It's making it part of your life. And
yes.
I believe that when you win the internal war, the external war disappears.
Absolutely. Good point. Good
Mm,
point.
mm.
As we get ready to close out, are there any other tips you'd like to share with the audience that you guys have learned as you develop this ACE model and as you've been working with your clients, or anything else that's coming up for you that you want to make sure you share with the audience
I think
today as they're thinking about burnout?
the big thing that I've learned is a thing called what we call the reactional gap, and it's about creating this gap between the stimulus that comes into our life and how we respond to it. And if we can create this reactional gap, that's big enough for us to move away from our reaction to something to respond to it, because they are two different things from reacting and responding. And it's all to do with the length of time that we can create between the stimulus and our response to the stimulus. Game changer.
Talk about that just a minute, because I think we all think, oh, somebody's talking, I've got to react. This has happened, I've got to react.
Yeah.
Tell me what that looks like with responding.
So when we react, it comes from old patterns of behavior that we've learned, whether it's from our parents, whether it's from our friends, our family. But when we respond to something, we take time, we can think about what is going to happen if I respond this way, what's going to happen if I respond that way. And then we can think about the outcome. It's rather than having an argument with someone, we
Mm,
stop and we think, if I say this, that's going to happen. If I say this, that's going to happen. And then we respond in a more calm manner, a more productive manner to get a better outcome. We don't want to be carrying the bag of anger around with it all day long. If you have an argument, there's no one's going to win in an argument. So let's respond in a more logical, rational, reasoning way. And that's what the reactional gap does.
Love that. Love that. Laura, anything else you want to add to that or thought as you think about other bits of wisdom that you've learned, or something you want to make sure that you share that's coming up for you right now?
I really feel that all the challenges that are presented to us in life are opportunities to learn and grow, right? And we have the choice. And I always say to my clients, I'm going to tell you a secret because it's my secret mission. And my secret is this: that you turn around and say to me that burnout was the best thing that ever happened to me, right? And it and it can be, right? Because you can ask these two essential questions. Number one, what am I being shown that I need to pay attention to? And number two, what can I learn from this situation? Because sometimes we're being shown something, in our life. It's turned up. Well, what is being shown to me? What is the path I'm not on? What's the thing I'm not listening to? And then the second question, I've always done this all through all of any adversity I've been through. What's the lesson here? What do I need to learn from this? Because then it turns it from a loss, less, never kind of lacking mindset to an abundance mindset, to a growth mindset, to a gaining. And that automatically helps you to take responsibility, and it puts you back in that position of power.
I think that's so powerful. And I think back to our pivot conversation, I love that exercise of writing all your pivots. And then what was the lesson, Laura, that you learned from that? What was the lesson? Because we got to where we are because we went through that. You all wouldn't be here serving all these people in burnout if you hadn't gone through that deep valley. And now look, and I love having the visual of the hero's journey, because it is a journey. It's never ending. And there's just different people and things on the journey. So thank you guys so much. I really loved this conversation. I can't help but look at the two of you now and think Clark Kent and Wonder Woman. So so fun. So fun. Okay. So how can people reach you if they want to connect with you guys?
Yeah, best thing would be we're on our website, which is rocksolidhealth.co.uk. We're on Instagram, rocksoliduk. We're on YouTube as Rock Solid Health. And also I'm on LinkedIn under Laura Ash as well, where I post pretty much every day.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. And I love the name Rock Solid. How did y'all come up with that? Just as a parting?
In the car.
car.
On the way, Barry and I come up with our best ideas in the car, and we were thinking, what should we call it? And all of a sudden,
Rock Solid. It's all about having rock solid foundations with our sleep, with our hydration, nutrition, thought management, exercise, de-stress me time. It's all about having these rock solid foundations that we can build on.
I love that. Well, Laura and Barry, thank you for sharing so much of your life, your vulnerability, your transparency, and your lessons learned. I am so looking forward to sharing this with our audience, and wish you the best.
Yeah,
So
thank you so much.
us.
We've had a wonderful time. It's been wonderful to talk to you, Dana. Thank you for creating this space for us.
you bet. You bet.